Welcome to Championship Predictions from the Honest Football Podcast. It's Matchday 13. It's a midweek edition. I'm Craig Savage. With me, as always, is Daniel Cody and Charlie Betts. First of all, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and you can follow us on Twitter at HonestFootball3. So let's have a look at Matchday 12, and it's probably our worst result all season so far. So no perfect scores between all three of us. There's the odd ones. So overall, Daniel Cody won Matchday 12 with 6 points to my 5, to Charlie's 4. So overall, the gap is slightly closed again at the top of the table. I'm on 79 points with 13 perfect scores. Cody is now on 76 with 8 perfect scores. And Charlie is on 64 with 9 perfect scores. Let's move on to Matchday 13. The first game is at Kenilworth Road. It's Luton Town versus Birmingham City. Both teams of the weekend both got a draw. Luton was 1-0 to Blackburn. Birmingham was a 0-0 draw against Coventry. That game was utterly terrible to watch. Cody, teams like Luton are getting points, ain't they?
I mean, to be fair, I don't think I'll be the only one. There were a few raised eyebrows at the Luton team selection. No recognised target man, which Nathan Jones has always played with. James Collins was on the bench. Danny Hilton not in the squad, obviously. We were also in the same position with Pelly Ruddock being left out. We all knew at Rotherham what happened the first half when they tried that last time. No Joe Morel after internationals. We almost seemed to have one eye on this game in midweek, but we still got a point. It was still a fairly even game. I mean, I think I saw yesterday an example of why Blackburn aren't higher up the league, but we'll talk about that later on. Birmingham, as you say, the game itself, I mean, I saw the highlights of it, which somehow Sky Sports Football got 1 minute and 7 seconds out of that, which is beyond incredible. But it was a return to Karanka being solid at the back, which we've been calling for a long time. So I actually think that's going to be the start of something good for Birmingham. I think he's gone back to basics there. And to be honest, Luton seem to be very good at drawing games at home. My only question in this one is whether Birmingham are going to score and whether they're going to keep a clean sheet. So for me, I'm torn between my two favourites of 0-0 and 1-0 right off the bat. And I don't know which one I'm going to go for. And I know one of you will have gone for something else. So I'm going to do it. Luton won't keep a clean sheet at home. I'm going to go for 1-1.
Charlie?
Do you know what? And I vowed to not do this, but I'm going to go for a Luton home win because the previous times I've done that, they haven't. But Birmingham just don't score away from home. They've scored 3 goals away from home all season. Now, I know what you're saying about Luton's team selection. If I was Nathan Jones, I'd be a bit annoyed because James Collins should have started for Ireland maybe a few games before that. And then they decided to play him in the one like 3 days before they returned for the championship fixture. Do you know what I mean? He sits on the bench for the first 2. I think Luton have got enough to beat Birmingham at home. I think Birmingham, as much as they drew a Coventry, like I said, it was a dire game. I'd like to think Luton have got a bit more of an attacking threat than Coventry. So I just can't see anything but a Luton win. I've said that 3 times before and Luton haven't won. So your draw is probably the best bet. But I don't think they're going to score as many at home. I don't know, 1-0 or 2-0. I can't see Birmingham scoring. I went for 1-0 Barnsley and it was 2-0, so I'm going to go 2-0 Luton.
I'm going to say Luton are going to win 2-1. Yeah, Birmingham, they didn't look threatening on Friday. I said the game was boring, and somehow Sky Sports made 1 minute, as you said, Coach. Luton, on the other hand, if they can cut out the little bits of when they concede goals, they concede crap goals. You know, the goal, obviously, Blackburn scored. The long ball into the area, they flick on. All they had to do is 2 centre-halves, all that one, just come across, sweep it, clear it away for a corner, whatever. And neither did anything like that. It will change the side on Tuesday. Morel will probably come back in. Pelly will come back in. Collins will come back in. But I think Luton have enough quality and win 2-1. Up next at the King Prince Foundation Stadium, it's Queen's Park Rangers versus Rotherham United. Queen's Park Rangers got a good draw against Watford at home on Saturday, and Rotherham lost by the odd goal to Swansea. Charlie, QPR inconsistent, but I think that's pretty much a very good result for them.
Oh, it's a massive result for them. The problem is what they follow up with. I don't know, but QPR are the sort of team who would get that result against Watford and then could get thumped at home 4-0 by a team like, careful, but a team, someone who's near the bottom of the table. That's just the sort of the squad that they are. So I don't know. I think they are slightly stronger at home in the context of them being the most inconsistent team in the Championship. But I'm going to back them at home though. So it could be 1-0 or 4-0. Rotherham get goals, QPR leaky at the back. 2-1 QPR.
It's a tough one. It's literally a tough one. So I'm going to sit on the fence on this one. I'm going to go for Daniel Cody. It's very scoreline of 1-1. I think for both teams, it's one of those that you don't want to lose. I think the last few games, Rotherham, they've been unlucky. Obviously, they got the win against Sheffield Wednesday and they beat Preston as well. Yeah, I think some of the games they feel like they've been a bit hard done by, a bit unlucky. And I don't think they have enough to get over the line to get the 3 points, but I think that a good point away from home will suit them. So 1-1 draw for me. Codes.
I'm going to shock you, and one of us is going to get a point this midweek
Wow.
because I'm going to go for it, a Rotherham win. At home, they've looked a bit better, but QPR, again, they're so inconsistent. Last time they drew a game in the Championship, here's my logic for this. They followed it up with a 3-0 defeat at Barnsley. So I'm going to go for Rotherham to grit one out, get a result. The away form, like Preston's home one at the weekend, which we'll come to, every run has to end eventually. So I'm going to go for an ugly 1-0 win to Rotherham.
Next up at the Bet365 Britannia Stadium, it's Stoke City versus Norwich. Both teams got 3 points at the weekend. Stoke somehow scored 4 and conceded 3. Norwich got a valuable 1-0 away win at Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough obviously been unbeaten at home since the opening day of the season. Codes, what the hell happened at the Bet365 Britannia Stadium?
I just don't know. I mean, to be fair, the Watford one, although there weren't too many chances outside of it, there were lots of goals. I just don't know, Craig. I really don't know. It's hard to predict either side to lose. Norwich have been excellent. That win at Borough is a fantastic result. And to keep a clean sheet, to nick it 1-0. And I sort of want to back them to do the same again. But these are the games, Charlie always says it, these are the games Michael O'Neill delivers. 0-0.
Wow.
After all that 0-0.
This is where the game Michael O'Neill delivers, and it's not what I don't agree on that either, to be honest. Yeah, Norwich, I think that's an excellent away win for Norwich. Yeah, they got a bit lucky with the penalty, but hey, when you grind out a 1-0 away at a Neil Warnock side, you got to give kudos to Daniel Farker and the squad. But this will be a different challenge for them. It'd be similar in a way, but Stoke will try and attack a bit more than probably what Middlesbrough would, to be honest, no disrespect to Middlesbrough. But Timo Pukki is scoring again. They grind themselves out, wins again, and they're going to grind themselves another away win, 2-1. Charlie.
Somebody's getting a point because, and I tell you my logic on this, and it's not because I like blindly back Michael O'Neill, but I would argue that the difference in Middlesbrough and Stoke is the number of goals. As great as Middlesbrough are, and we, as you say, are probably slightly unlucky against Norwich the other day. They haven't got the same firepower, I don't think, as Stoke, and they probably do lack a clinical goal scorer as other teams in the league. So because of that, that maybe held them back. Most of their wins are 1-0 wins. Do you know what I'm getting at? So Stoke have got goals in them, and I just think these are the sorts of games where they are suited to Stoke play of counter-attacking, soaking up the pressure. I just think this is made for Michael O'Neill. I know I say that every week, and they don't win every week, but I think they will. It's what score. I genuinely think, you're going to laugh at this, but I think if Norwich go too quick too early, they might let a couple. So I'm going to go 3-1 Stoke City.
Up next at Adams Park, it's Wycombe Wanderers versus Huddersfield Town. Wycombe picked up a 0-0 draw on Saturday to Brentford, which none of us saw.
Well, no, we did. Dan and I were about a second away from predicting it. We both said it in our head saying it's a Brentford win, but our heart saying a draw. We should have gone with the heart. Anyway.
Huddersfield, we just spoke about the Stoke game, obviously lost 4-3. Charlie, how much of a boost a clean sheet is? It's the second clean sheet of the season for Wycombe. How much of a boost is that for Wycombe?
Oh, yeah, especially against the team that's got Ivan Toney in it, who up to that point was, scoring for fun. So you've got to take a lot of positives out of that. I think it's how you follow up in these sorts of games, though, that is a test. Because, I'm not saying that it is a bonus getting a point against Brentford, but a lot of people, ourselves included, obviously didn't give them a chance, really. So it's all well and good getting that point there, but you then have to follow up with in the games. I'm not saying this is a game they should win, but you'd like to think they've got more of a chance against Huddersfield. My worry is that it does take a lot out of a squad to sort of be that resolute and defend, and then you've got to try and hit teams on the counter. And I don't know how many weeks you can just play out for a draw, which I'm not saying they are, but they picked up a few draws in the last few results. So for me, I don't know. It's good, but it's not going to keep them up. This kind of play, they're going to have to come out a bit more eventually. So on that note, I know they've been great recently, but I do think that Huddersfield might sneak a win against them. I just think that Wycombe have got to come out eventually. So on that basis, Huddersfield 2-0.
Codes?
I completely disagree, you'll be pleased to know. I mean, I'm looking at Wycombe's recent form. The last 6 games, they've played against 4 of the top promotion contenders in Brentford, Forest at the start of the season, Watford and Norwich. The last 3 home games, 2 good draws against Watford and against Brentford, and a win against the side down there like Sheffield Wednesday at the moment. And the same for Birmingham away from home. They got a good result there. And I think against these sort of teams is when they'll thrive. I think they're the ones they're targeting. And I think they will be a bit more advanced. So I'm going to go for Wycombe to nick this because Huddersfield's form's been poor. They won that Millwall game when they didn't have a management team. They drew at home to Luton, but, we weren't great. And other than that, they've lost 4 in a row. They've only lost by the odd goal, so I'll go for the same again. But I think it's going to be another one, low scoring, a gritty 1-0 win. I was tempted with 2-1, but I'm sticking with 1-0 to Wycombe.
For the third game in a row, one of us is guaranteed a point.
Wow.
Yeah, do you know what? Huddersfield, obviously, the goals they conceded on Saturday were weird and poor. Wycombe, on the other hand, it'll be a boost for them to keep a clean sheet. I don't think they will keep a clean sheet in this game. I think Wycombe are going to take the lead, hold on for such a long time, that Huddersfield will sneak a late equaliser in the 85th minute from Fraser Campbell. 1-1.
Very bold.
Up next at Oakwell, it's Barnsley versus Brentford. Barnsley, 4 wins out of 5, the new manager now, coach.
He's been absolutely brilliant. I mean, we did hint at the new manager bounce when we talked about the Barnsley appointment, but I don't think even you and I expected this, let's be honest. So it's been an incredible achievement. And at home, the 3 performances at home have been solid. They've been convincing. 6 goals, 3 clean sheets.
It was a cracking goal as well, the first goal.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they've just been... They look like they've had a new lease of life. We talked about Adam Murray solidifying them at the back in the 3 games he was in charge. 3 points. Ishmael's just built on it. They look a good threat. Brentford have been solid. They haven't been winning many games, but they're unbeaten in 5. 4 draws. They've only conceded 2 goals. They got that big win away at Luton, which does worry me because Barnsley, traditionally, we've come up in a similar way. This game is honestly the one where I feel like we're all going to end up with egg on our face no matter what we go for. But I don't know that I can go against Barnsley. I don't think they're going to get 3 points again this time, but I do think they're still going to get a result. And I'm going to go for the safe bet of the Championship's favourite score. I think it will be a draw. I don't know what score. And the most likely odds are 1-1. So that's what I'm going for.
Do you know what? Brentford have been a bit, even though I tipped them to go up this season, they've been really ropey. Obviously, they lost some key players, and I don't want to keep badging them out. Oh, they lost Ben Rama, all that stuff, but Ollie Watkins. But yeah, they've not been the same. And no, I'm going to stick to what I actually wrote. I think Barnsley will continue their very good form. I think Barnsley are going to win 2-1. Charlie.
Yeah, do you know what? I haven't copied the same scoreline, Craig, but I've gone with you and I've gone with the numbers. And Barnsley are still unbeaten at home, despite all of the predictions at the beginning of the season. And like I say, won the last 3 at home as well. Brentford, mixed bag away from home. You know, win, draw, loss, that kind of thing. And if I was Barnsley, I would take a bit of confidence out of that. I know they've set up differently to Wycombe. But just if you try and frustrate Brentford a bit, the longer that game goes on, it gives you a bit of a chance. So I don't think there'll be many goals in it. I think it'll be a 1-0 win for Barnsley. But it all depends on how they set up in that first half an hour. If they can keep Brentford out for the first half hour, I generally fancy them to then go on and win that game. So I'm planning on them doing that because they've been so strong and resolute at home. So 1-0 Barnsley.
Up next at Deepdale, it's Preston North End versus Blackburn. Preston won a game at home. What a miracle against Sheffield Wednesday under Tony Pulis. Blackburn obviously got that draw with Luton. Charlie, Preston winning at home. How did that happen?
Well, part of it is that obviously quite early on, it was 17 minutes into the game, Wednesday went down to 10 men. So I'm not saying that's the whole reason. Obviously, it does give you a massive advantage for obvious reasons. So I don't know how much we read into that as a sudden break of this home hoodoo, because they're playing against 10 men for the largest part of the game. And they still only did win 1-0. And actually, in the first half, Wednesday hit the bar as well and created quite a few chances. So I'm still not convinced that Preston's home form. I've got to be brutally honest with you. I don't know if they'll lose necessarily, because Blackburn, as you lads saw, can also be just as erratic as QPR. And away from home, I don't know. I think I'm going to have to bottle it and sit on the fence on this one. I don't think Preston will win. I'm not reading too much into last Saturday. So I'm going to go for a draw. It's what score. And Blackburn sometimes do have goals in them. They do play in thrillers. So against all my better judgment, I'm going to go for a Desmond 2-2.
Coach, can you see why Blackburn have been so infuriating and inconsistent?
Well, more to me is that I couldn't see that they'd learnt their lesson from last year at Luton on the final day, which is against Luton. They went 3-1 down on the last day of last season. They put 2 big target men on together up front, pumped the ball up to them, and Luton couldn't handle it. And as soon as they did the same at 1-0 down in the last game on Saturday, the exact same thing happened. So I'm going to bank on them to start them in the midweek. And I know it's difficult because Adam Armstrong's the top scorer in the Championship, or was before the weekend. And I think there's a place in the team for all 3 of them. There's a few others that are flatter to deceive. I mean, I'm not going to get into the Joe Rothwell teams like Luton thing, but he was then the worst player on the pitch for Blackburn and almost gave himself a pressure he didn't need to, which I didn't really understand. Now, I want to say about the Preston home win very quickly. That goal was the only shot on target of the game for either side. So let's not think Preston's hoodoo's broken and it's going to be a miracle. There's an early red card. They managed 1 shot on target and sneaked a 1-0 win. For me, that hasn't solved anything. So for me, Blackburn are going to win. They're 3 unbeaten. They're going to learn a lesson. They're going to overpower Preston and it's going to be comfortable. They're going to win 3-1.
That's what I put down. No, I actually did. I did change mine because I think I did scribble 1-1, but I then changed mine to 3-1. No, I totally agree with what you said there, Coach. To be honest, like Blackburn did play some nice stuff when Adam Armstrong was up top on his own. It really did. It was actually a good game, Luton Blackburn. But once they, as you say, once Broughton Gallagher, BS football, as I like to use in my own football term, and it was working. It worked. To be fair, they got the equaliser. Yeah, Preston on the other hand, yeah, they obviously took full advantage of that extra man. I don't think they're going to get anything out of this game. I also going to go for 3-1. Next up, it's Bournemouth versus Nottingham Forest. Bournemouth came from 2-0 down at home for Reading to win 4-2 with some quite comical fourth goal. We'll get on to that in a second. Obviously, Forest lost 2-0 to Barnsley. We didn't expect Bournemouth to score many goals at home, Codes, but they scored 4 in half an hour.
Look, I mean, we rightly didn't expect them to score many goals at home because they hadn't scored many goals at home, in fairness. We were talking logically, but the Championship isn't anything near that. The goals, again, we talked about it with Reading at Coventry and a couple of other games. The goals they conceded are so poor, so we'll get onto them later. But that's the main reason Bournemouth scored so many goals. But they have started the last 2 games, 7 goals. They're putting a bit of pressure on teams, but they can't give them a head start. You know, in most of their draws, we talk about the Watford game as an example. They're falling behind and having to come back. Nottingham Forest, I know Barnsley are in great form, but that is a real kick for them. They got 2 good home wins against Coventry and Wycombe. They were starting to build momentum. And again, it doesn't quite seem to be there. It's 2 steps forward and then 1 back for Chris Hughton's side. So I actually think Bournemouth now, as a result of those weekend fixtures, become the favourite for this game. I don't think it'll be as high scoring because Forest are better at the back and Chris Hughton's got them well organised. But I can see them letting in 2 again. And I think Bournemouth have been solid. So 2-1 to Bournemouth for me.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was quite surprised with Bournemouth coming back. I say credit's due. Lewis Cook's goal was probably the goal of the weekend. Not going to lie, it was unbelievable strike. But they hassled, they bossed, they pressed, they were determined to get back into the game. And then they just literally hit Reading for 6. Forest haven't been special under Chris Hughton. I think, obviously, we talked about other managers obviously taking charge of other clubs and say it'll take time for them to get used to his system and all that stuff. And I said it's the same thing for Forest. I know he's had about 5-6 games now. I think he needs January. I think he needs a transfer window to open to get his type of players. So I do think there'll be another defeat for Nottingham Forest, but I'm going to go for 2-0 to Bournemouth. Charlie.
That's annoying. That's what I was going to go for. No, my point I'm going to make is I haven't backed a single Bournemouth result right since we started this competition. So the shame is that I've now gone for a Bournemouth win, which means probably all 3 of us are not going to get a single point. Because whenever I back them for something, they always do the opposite. But anyway, yeah, no, I'm not going to go over too much about what you said. But I do think that, obviously, Forest away from home aren't as good. I know what you're saying about their recent wins, but I think they're only won 1 in the last 6 away from home. Even under Hughton, they've not been great away from home. So it does point to a Bournemouth win. It is the scoreline. I don't think they've got any strikers who seem to be in form. I just don't see the goals coming thick and fast for them. So on that note, I don't know, will Bournemouth keep a clean sheet? I think they will. It's how many Bournemouth score. I'm going to go back to where they were. I think this weekend was a freak. 1-0 Bournemouth.
As we move on to Wednesday's fixtures, the first game of the day is Middlesbrough versus Derby County. Derby only lost 1-0 to Bristol City, but it still wasn't a great performance by them, the new Wayne Rooney, the senior regime, Charlie.
I do think the result flattered them slightly. I think they were not anywhere near in the game as much as what a 1-0 would suggest. So there are still major problems there. I think they've still got issues. Liam Rosenior, he's obviously doing quite well as an assistant, but it's not an ideal setup having a player manager. And I'm sure Dan will have his views on why he's captain and stuff in a minute. But for me, I can't see anything but a Derby loss. And they're coming up against someone as experienced as Neil Warnock. And I know we talk about that and it's a cliche, but these sorts of games, you've got probably the newest manager in the Championship against the oldest one. It can only go one way for me. And my only reservation with this is Middlesbrough don't score loads of goals. So I think they'll win. I don't want to go for a boring 1-0 all the time. I seem to be picking that. But I don't see any goals from Derby. So a clean sheet for Middlesbrough, 2-0 Borough.
Oh, you're going to hate me for that one because that's what I've exactly gone for. And I'm sticking with it. Yeah, Middlesbrough, obviously, they lost 1-0 to Norwich. The penalty was unlucky. Obviously, the guy slipped. But yeah, I just thought it was one of those games, to be honest, with Middlesbrough. Well, obviously, it was going to be the odd goal in it. Derby, on the other hand, yeah, obviously, there wasn't the odd goal in that one as well. But I don't see any change. And obviously, they're saying that they've changed their style a little bit. But I still think it's going to be a defeat for Derby. I think Middlesbrough go back to winning form of a 2-0 win. Coach?
I can't see anything other than Borough win. I mean, the Derby thing, the thing that surprised me most about that game, I'll take aside all my views on the manager situation. I will make one sentence on that later. But Derby didn't play any differently. They kept the ball incredibly well. Their passing rate was hugely successful because they were playing short, safe passes throughout the match and didn't really create much. It was an improved performance defensively, but it was surprising how similar it was. I thought there would be an immediate change. I've given my views to you privately. I don't think there should be a player manager. I think Liam Rosenior should have been the interim, but I think it's clear why Rooney is, let's be honest. Middlesbrough, look, it was a one-off against a very good team who are unbeaten in a long time. They've still only conceded 2 goals in 6 games, albeit they've only scored 4 and haven't scored in the last 3. So you could make a case for a 0-0 here, but I think Borough will nick it. I think there'll be an error and it will be 1-0 to Middlesbrough.
Up next, it's Millwall versus Reading. Millwall 3 straight draws now for them. Reading 4 straight defeats. This is a hard one to call. Oh, Reading really played well for an hour. After that, they completely capitulated. I don't know what the hell the goalkeeper was doing for the 4th goal. Millwall, 3 straight draws for them. Obviously drew with Cardiff. The long ball over the top to Smith, obviously with the header. I think that's going to be the same way again, to be honest. I think they're going to... Reading haven't beaten the team that does that sort of stuff, I think, the long direct stuff. So I'm going to go for the odd goal of a 1-0 win from Millwall. Charlie?
I think there's a case to be made for a draw here. And Millwall are not great at home. And Reading, the bubble has burst. And I don't know. Part of me is taking confidence that they still scored 2 against Bournemouth, who are sort of famous so far this season for not letting in a lot of goals. But they did off Wycombe. And I don't want to be the one who was the catalyst for that happening. I know the week I said that they leaked goals. They've then not won since, I don't think. But, see, I've got to risk. I'll either try and go for a draw and claw back some points, or I go with my head and think that Millwall will probably win. I'm going to go with Millwall win, but I think Reading have got a goal. No, I'm not. No, I'm going to go for a draw. 1-0. Championship's favourite scoreline.
Codes?
I think Millwall will bounce back in this one. 3 draws. Reading, they've let in 15 goals in 5 games. And to be fair, after the first one where they let in 2, Charlie described them as league. He got slated and they've now let in 13 in 4. So he had a case, didn't he? He can see the future, if nothing else. He can't predict the scorelines, but he knows what's going to happen. Look, Millwall have been solid at the back since that Huddersfield game. We talked about the managerial situation at the time with the senior staff all having to isolate. I cannot see past a Millwall win. I worry for Reading at the moment. So I'm going to go for Millwall to win this one by 3-1.
Up next at St Andrews, it's Coventry City versus Cardiff. Coventry drew 0-0 with Birmingham, which we said earlier was probably the worst game in the Championship of the season. Cardiff picked up the draw against Millwall. Kiefer Moore with the equaliser, not with his head. He took it very well. I didn't see look like Coventry were going to score, and I don't see Coventry scoring again. I could see Cardiff being direct and hitting them with a set piece. And that's how it's going to end, 1-0 to Cardiff. Cody?
Well, Coventry are better at home than they are on the road. I think Cardiff on the road are okay. They seem to draw most games. There's a very good case for it being a draw. But do you know what? I've barely backed Coventry to get a result this season. I do think they'll go down eventually because I don't think they've got that firepower up front. And after a few games goal scoring, it was back to traditional ways against Birmingham. That's the sort of game they have to win. And for me, I think they will win this one. There won't be too many more, but I think it's going to be a 1-0 win, a sneaked one for Coventry.
Charlie?
Yeah, I'm going to go straight down the middle for the following reasons. That I think Cardiff tend to set up a bit more defensively away from home. Been draw specialists away from home so far. Coventry, I think, will have to come out a bit more, and I think it might pay off, but then they're going to leave themselves exposed at the back. So do I go for 2 of the Championship's favourite scorelines in a row? Yes, I do. 1-1.
Up next at Ashton Gate is Bristol City versus Watford. Bristol City, 3 straight wins now. Where did that come from? We said, the forms dipped for them, but obviously now they're back up in the 3rd place. 3 straight wins for them. Watford drew with QPR at the weekend. Bit inconsistent, Watford. Charlie?
Yeah, I mean, I think I initially had Watford to go up in the playoffs. And I'm not saying, again, not predicting the future, but I do think they are still a little bit ropey. They're still a little bit... I don't know if they're still finding their feet after a bit of a sale of some key players over the summer and things like that, but they just don't seem to have that confidence that you would maybe attribute to other teams in the league, like a Bournemouth or someone like that at the minute, anyway. But they are still grinding out results. So, I'm bottling it again and thinking I'm going down the middle. Where Bristol City have been in great form. And Watford do let in goals recently. Do you know what? Bristol City at home, 2-1.
Coach?
Completely agree. Watford, the last 3 away games, they've not been great. They've played 3 sides expected to be down there in QPR, Wycombe and Barnsley. Only picked up the 2 points. Been involved in 3-2 thrillers at home, which tells me what score I'll be going for at the weekend. But for this one, I have to agree with Charlie as much as I don't want to agree on the scoreline. It's 2-1 to Bristol City for me.
I did go for 2-1, but in Watford's favour. But I've changed my mind looking at the form of Bristol City. And I'm going to go, I think it's probably the game of the midweek, an entertaining 2-2 draw. And the final game at the Liberty Stadium, it's Swansea City versus Sheffield Wednesday. Not the best start for Tony Pulis, Cody.
No, I would be surprised if we see Josh Windass for a little while after that. It was a ridiculous tackle, and Tony Pulis will be very stern with that, in my opinion. I think other than that, as I said, Sheffield Wednesday didn't have a shot on target. They tried to shut up shop, but they only conceded one shot on target against Preston. And I think that bodes well for them. So I'm going to go for them to get a result here. Swansea, it's been 1-0, 1-0, 1-0 the other way, So I don't think there's many goals in this game. I think I'm going to have to go for a draw. I'm going to finish on my favourite scoreline, the Championship's favourite scoreline. It's going to be Swansea 1, Sheffield Wednesday 1.
Charlie?
Yeah, I think Swansea have just been so good at home, and I completely agree with you, but it's going to take a little bit of time for Tony Pulis to maybe sort out a few of the problems they had there. And Swansea love a 1-0 home win, so I'm going to have to go on that and just hope that the numbers go in my favour. So again, Swansea's favourite scoreline, 1-0 at home.
I have to agree with Charlie on a Swansea win, to be honest. On a Swansea win, not the scoreline. Yeah, I think Sheffield Wednesday, obviously, I think they'll actually finally score a goal, but I think Swansea have enough quality in them to score more. So I really think that Swansea will win 2-1. And those are our predictions. A quick recap of what we've picked. Gone pretty much scattered this week. Charlie and Cody went for a 2-1 Bristol City win, and me and Cody gone for Blackburn 3-1 win at Preston. And those are our predictions. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? Let us know in the comment section down below. Let us know your predictions for this midweek. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the Honest Football Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at HonestFootball3. And we'll see you next time.